Hi, I am Anne-Lill and this is Dean. Let's scratch that and start again, shall we?
Hello, this is Dean and this is
Anne-Lill.
and we are on the Queen Lizzy 1.
1 mile at a time. 1 mile at a time.
We are currently up in the Whitsundays and, flashing news, we're giving up.
Well, not exactly giving up. So our journey on the Queen Lizzy 2, which we are currently sailing in the Mediterranean, started with the Queen Lizzy 1, or just the Queen Lizzy, which is what we're on now. Queen Lizzy is a Bali 4.2. We purchased the Queen Lizzy back in April 2022, or that's when we took delivery of her, brand new, from Bali in France. Our aim with buying the Queen Lizzy was to learn about what it's like to own a boat, to spend some time sailing up and down the Australian coastline, which we've done, and to understand not just better how to sail the boat, but also how to take care of the boat, which is an important thing, because this is the first time we'd actually owned a boat. We've been sailing plenty of times before. We've done RYA training, but we'd never actually owned a boat. And owning a boat, there's a whole lot of things to think about in terms of maintenance. So we met Bali and met Christoph Vanak, who was our broker, and at that time was also the general manager of Dream Yacht Charters in the Whitsundays. And what seemed like a great idea, and in fact has proven to be fantastic, was to purchase the boat, put it in the charter fleet, so the boat is being maintained and earns some money. And in fact, we made a profit on her every year and continue to make a profit, but also learn how to take care of a boat.
So Dean said we put her in the charter, and I know what you think, it's a charter boat. But we had one thing in mind when we were putting her into charter. One, we wanted to use the boat as much as we could. Two, we will travel up regularly just to check the status of the boat and go on board, spend a week, and if there was anything that needed to be fixed, we got it fixed. Not like we've seen the 10 years we did rent charter boats, that owners don't care because they just want the money. We actually came on board at least 4 or 5 times a year and made sure the boat was actually in top-notch condition all the time.
Yeah.
That was one of our goals, having her in the fleet instead of just having it ourselves. And the reason we put her in the fleet is we knew we didn't have the time, because we were working back then. We didn't have the time to take care of the boat full time. So for us, the best compromise was to have it in a charter fleet where we knew there would be maintenance, we knew she would be looked after, and we could trust the people taking care of the boat up at Airlie Beach.
Yeah. So the news is we are selling the Queen Lizzy 1 because simply we're just not being able to spend much time on her anymore. We used to come up every 2 or 3 months from Sydney up to the Whitsundays. In the Queen Lizzy, we have sailed a considerable amount. We've sailed from Newcastle to Airlie Beach. We've sailed back from Airlie Beach down to Sanctuary Cove twice. In fact, the boat was looking so new, even though at that point in charter, that she was presented at the Gold Coast Sanctuary Cove Boat Show as a brand new boat in 2022 and 2023 boat shows. So we've sailed her probably about 5,000 nautical miles ourselves. So we've got to know the boat incredibly well, not just how well she sails, and she sails really well, but also learn how to take care of her, how all the systems work, and we've done a lot of upgrades to the systems as we went. Certainly, a boat being used regularly will last a lot longer than a boat that sits in the marina or on a mooring for most of the year. And sadly, most of us have to work and don't get the time to use a boat full time. So the boat is maintained up at Dream Yacht Charters. You may have read about charter boats and the concerns about maintenance. The charter business in Australia is very different to what it is in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. In those areas, and we know, we've experienced it, we have chartered boats in the Mediterranean. Their seasons are much shorter, 6-month season. During that season, they charter the boat Saturday to Saturday. The boat comes back in from its charter they literally have 2 to 3 hours to turn around the boat, clean it, get the new charterers back on board, and off they go again.
And if there's anything wrong, they just don't have time to fix it. They just
Yep.
leave it and hope it holds to the end of season.
Yeah, which of course means some repairs are done in a really quick fashion just to get the boat working. It's a very different system in Australia for all of the charter fleets that operate in the Whitsundays because it's an all-year operation. So the charter boats will be chartered for a week, sometimes two, but they will typically have some days up to some weeks sometimes between each charter. So that gives time for the all the maintenance crew to come on board to make any adjustments that need to be done, engine servicing, all those things that have to be done to maintain the boat. In the case of Queen Lizzy, the advantage we've had is that we have come up here every couple of months and meticulously tested everything on the boat, made any of those other final adjustments to make sure that everything is working perfectly. You know, adjusting cabin doors and all those little things. It's a boat, there's always something that needs to be adjusted.
And we're not talking only, as Dean said, like engine maintenance. We come on board, we have a look. Is there scrapes? Are the cushions dirty? Are there small things that need to be fixed that actually doesn't look like a big thing, but it's quite annoying when you're on the boat if it's not fixed, like having a working barbecue, having a working oven, having a working stove, a properly fixed and working fridge and ice maker and stuff like that, which makes lives a lot better when you're on board with 4 of your best friends or your family, so it's maybe 6 people on board. You just want things to work.
Yeah. We've added a lot of other things as well that only an owner would use. So, for example, Starlink. For us, it's essential for communication, for safety, for all of those things. But charterers don't need that. A water maker, so we have that here when we are doing a longer passage. But those things are packed away, not to be used by the charterers, but to use when we're up here as owners. So the choice is yours how much you use that. We can talk through why we chose a Bali as well.
Yeah, and that's actually a little bit of a story behind that, because over 10 years ago, we started thinking maybe sometime we can afford to buy a boat. We couldn't back then, and we're talking 2015 here. And we were thinking, we really would like to have a boat at some point. So we went to the Sydney Boat Show. And one of the first catamarans we walked on board was actually the first Bali 4.3, the first Bali at all that came to Sydney. And the guy on board showing the boat was actually Christoph. And we walked on board that boat and we looked around and we said, this boat got so many smart solutions. So if we ever going to have a boat, there's certain things it needs to have. And that kind of stayed in our minds for the next 10 years, even though we rented in that period. We rented like sea winds, Fontaine-Peugeots, leopards, lagoons. So we rented quite a big variety of brands of catamarans just to see how they were working, how we liked them. But we always came back to a few things that is very unique for Bali. And one of them is very simple for me, being in the galley most of the time, sometimes when we got guests, is a full-size fridge. It is the most amazing thing to have on a boat. Second thing was the big garage door you open to get a full flow through a wind in the boat. Just amazing. And I think the third thing we really liked was a solid foredeck where you can sit and entertain. There's a front cockpit, especially coming into a marina. You don't have to sit in the back and let everybody look at you. You can go in the front, let the breeze through your hair and just have a private dinner and just enjoy life.
Yeah. So that's why we chose the Bali. And we love the Bali so much that our new Queen Lizzy 2 in the Mediterranean is a Bali 4.6. So we've gone for a slightly larger boat just to give us a bit more space. It sleeps the same number of people. But the Bali 4.2 was a good size for us to start off with. We can easily handle it with the two of us. We've both had training. We've both had RYA day skipper, ICC, and we've done that training on the boat as well. But you can really sail this boat single-handed. How does she sail? Look, she sails as well or better than an equivalent size lagoon or Fontaine-Peugeot.
Or leopard.
We know because we've sailed next to them. Of course, when you're sailing along and there's another boat sailing next to you, it's a race, whether the other boat knows it or not. And we've generally outsailed them. The boat has just the standard main and jib. We haven't got a code 0 on it because code 0 is a bit more difficult for charterers to use.
But what we did, we actually got a sail trainer on board for a couple of hours and learned how to trim the sails perfectly for this boat. And that's something we recommend for anybody. It doesn't matter what kind of boat you have. Learn how to trim your boat properly. When we did that, we suddenly gained a couple of knots speed when we went sailing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So look, we love the Bali. We've not had any major issues with this boat at all. We have all the full service records of everything that's been done to it, but there's been no damage to it. There's no issues that have come up. She hasn't run aground or nothing like that.